Hey, friends. Hello, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome. Did we have a show last week?
We did not.
Right?
No,
We're
off air last week.
So, all right. No, it's good to be back after a nice week off and with an awesome guest. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to tonight's show. And in case you didn't see the title of the show, we're talking to John Mallett tonight, who is the VP of Operations for Bell's, and also the literal author of the book on Malt, the Brewing Elements series. So it's going to be really cool to talk to him about malt and drinking and whatever other BS we come up with tonight. Do we have any pre-show business or anything that we need to talk about? Anything that's going on in the next couple of weeks? Or
no, we're still working out the schedule for the rest of the month. I think what's the next one going to be, Brian? Mead. We're going to cover mead.
Yeah, I definitely want to get on mead. I want to get on like mixed fermentation, like wild American like wild ales and stuff like that. So, yeah, not sure which, but yeah, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll get some posts up the next couple of weeks. But no, yeah, that's it. I think we should get into it. I hate leaving guests sitting, so let's bring in John. So, John Mallett, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming and hang out with us and having a beer. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's cool to be here.
So we've been doing this for about 8 months, and before that, we're just a couple of homebrewers. But you, on the other hand, you've been in brewing for decades, right? I mean, not to try to throw age on it. Did you start as a home brewer?
I did just very little home brewing, and went into the brewery very early in my brewing, like sort of journey, like professional brewing, and that was like in the mid '80s. So nice. I've been at it for a little while. But like home brewing, it was fantastic because it allowed me to play with some different stuff that I wasn't in a commercial brewery, and I've always, I love drinking homebrew because there's so much creativity and so much play, and professional brewing. I think you're really striving for consistency, and homebrewing, that's really not the end goal. I mean, it's great to do that, but it's not like a prerequisite.
Right.
So.
Do you do any homebrewing? You have any time?
No. I do a lot of home fermentation, but it's like I make bread and that kind of stuff. I'm very
cool. Do you like kimchi or anything?
Do anything with hot sauce?
No. I mean, I'm mostly like breads that yeast and grain. Yeah.
Fair enough. I was hoping, we also have another club called the Kalamazoo Hot Sauce Enthusiasts. We talk a lot about fermented hot sauces and shit like that. So, seeing. What are you drinking tonight? Anything?
I'm going to drink a hop solution first. I also have a juicy gossip on the lineup.
Nice.
It just came back out again, didn't it?
A couple Hoppy Beers.
I'm working my way through the Hearted series. I realized a while ago I got a 6-pack of Cold Hearted and Black Hearted, and I forgot about them. And I've always got 2 Hearted, so I'm just going to go down the line.
Yeah,
nice.
What about you, Brian?
You, Jordan?
As Brian looks for a beer.
I was as I'm reaching for my bag.
Well, no, I got some of this. I picked up over the weekend. Yeah. Good shit. I'm really enjoying it.
That's actually what I just pulled up too. So just happen to have some of that in my fridge. I'm like,
haven't had it yet.
Yeah,
that's why I was cracking up, Jason, because you actually said just before we brought it.
What's going on with this, man?
No, just setting them up.
Yeah.
Right on. So
if you're gonna set them up, then I'm gonna knock them back.
My usual, I was gonna say usually when it comes this time of year with Bell's, I'm drinking Smitten, but that didn't make the lineup this year, right?
Oh, sad.
Super sad.
Is it the brewery? The way of the brewery, the way things go.
I know. Yeah. So, what brewery did you start at, John? Back in the 80s.
Yeah, I started at a brewery in Boston, which was called Commonwealth. It was right down the street from the Garden on Tottenham Street. And it was this English ale brew pub with pretty good size, and we used to do huge. It was like the only place I've ever seen that had a line, like line to get through the door, and by that I mean the line to get out the door when like the Bruins or Celtics would play, because everybody's like putting on their jacket and trying to get out, like we're all going to the game. It was pretty big space, and it was just cool to be there. We made English ales, and it was just, I still remember Boston's best Burton bitter, 850 pounds of pale malt, 55 pounds, caramel, all kinds of good stuff in there. So, and East Kent Goldings, delicious East Kent Goldings. So,
yes, it sounds actually.
I was just going to say, trying to reproduce it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and enough fertilization of the water to make it stick. That like just kind of dry. I love English malt because you got that like sort of like pale but a little bit of color. It's got really like a great toasty, biscuity character to it, and it's slightly drying, so it works really well with something that's of lower gravity. So you just not, like if you had this big malty thing that would like dry your throat out too much because it's a little lower gravity, it dries it out enough that you want to have another sip, and it's not so strong that you can't have another sip, and so you just end up bowling back the pints.
So when you say English malt, is it like a Maris Otter, or like are there certain varieties of two-row over there that like you more specifically mean, or?
Yeah, well, I think that that English malting was done. The roast would go off at a little higher temperature, so the malt dries at a higher temperature, and that produces color. It produces sort of a malty flavor. Like when I think about classic like malty malt flavor, it's in there. But it also does a couple of other interesting things. One, it removes all the DMS precursors, so you don't get any of the sulfur compounds from an insufficient kettle boil, which is often a problem in English beers. Not a great boil at that time. Didn't change. And then the other thing it does is it again gets this like slightly drying, like tannic character to it, like tea. Not unpleasant. And I just think that those combinations work super well, especially on a lower gravity beer. And, if you're talking about classic, like sessionable beers, those are pretty good ones.
Right.
Don't you have an English mild or something, Jason?
I was just going to say, I just last week ago Saturday brewed an ordinary bitter.
Okay.
And I was looking at that, John, like, I wound up using Maris Otter, and I added a little bit of caramel malt, just a little bit to try to get some more maltiness and a little bit more color in it. And then hopped it with EKG, super basic.
Did you put the sugar in?
I did
not. Sugar in. That's another like classic English thing. A little bit of sugar in there, and it all comes together then.
Right. I actually failed because I didn't have any English yeast on hand, and it was late. I got to the brew store late. My brain cramp, and then I really wanted to brew. So I went and threw Lutra in it, which is a pseudo pill kind of Viking strain. So I'm curious to see what I'm going to get. I'm going to this weird Norwegian ordinary bitter or something.
You didn't break beer, did you?
I have broke beer many other times, but not this time. This will at least be drinkable.
Jason, he's too shy to admit it sometimes, but he has multiple gold medals. One with a Berliner Weiss made with a full box of Fruit Loop cereal. So NHC, like first place winning beer. So. He has broken beer.
You want to talk about breaking beer, John?
Yeah.
Probably the worst beer I ever made. I made with Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms? Oh, I wouldn't. Just dealing with the shit that those marshmallows would put in it would scare me. No, yeah.
But yeah, the marshmallows turn the mash like this sickly grayish green.
That's what happens with the Fruit Loops, doesn't it?
Yeah, as the Fruit Loops turns out the first phase of it turns out like dishwater. It's gray, and then as you I do a kettle sour, and so that drops out some, and it comes out this like greenish blue, real pretty color, almost like ectoplasm, and then that kind of drops out in the boil, and you start to get that straw color. The end result is a perfectly clear, pale, beautiful Berliner Weiss. We did it as a joke competition. Not at Keepers of Craft, we all got together and brewed a beer with a box of cereal as a way just to do something fun. And I had bottles left over, and I thought, what the hell, I'll throw it in HC and see what happens. And it came back, and the judges, these nationally recognized BJCP judges, say it's a perfect example of style. I didn't know they had Fruit Loops back in Germany in the early 1900s, but evidently that's a
Napoleon's troops referred to it as the strawberries of the South.
Oh man! So speaking about the homebrew and the competition, since Brian brought that up, and I know it's not your probably your space, but do you think Bell's will bring back the homebrew comp this year? COVID be damned, or is it? Have you heard anything?
Well, I mean, we love that event, so
We do too.
yeah. Just the idea when like COVID was ramping up of like, let's get a whole bunch of really interested people together in a pack. And it was not going to happen, but I don't know. I feel pretty confident. I'm feeling a hell of a lot more confident about where we're going right now with the speed of the vaccine rollout. And so yeah, I'm really hoping that we're going to be there.
Hoping?
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd make me happy.
Yeah,
one of my favorite times of year.
We got no plans to cancel it. COVID is, if COVID's working,
right?
Or COVID's not working.
I don't know about you, Jason. I don't think it was, but Jordan, wasn't that your first brew, basically?
Yep.
Your first home brew?
Yep. That was my first time homebrewing on my own, was getting some wort from the homebrew competition and going home and making a mess of it. But hey, that's how we learn.
Yeah. And then a year later, he roped me in, and I think that was my first experience. So
yep.
Yeah,
that's great.
That's great.
Brian and I here, and Jason for a few years, we were, what was it? Was it 3 or 4 years in a row? We were the crazy ones showing up at like 6 a.m.
Yeah. We're the first ones in line for like 4 years in a row, I think.
Wow.
Awesome. So, John, I forgot to tell you, we do try to interact with the group. Over on the side, you'll see comments, and people will throw comments in, as the viewers come and go. And so we do try to interact with them. And Jason Glass, just to throw these in, he asked if you think there's an underappreciated malt. He's saying he thinks brown malt is underappreciated. Is there anything that you think that's out there that doesn't get the attention that you think it deserves?
I mean, there's some really lesser known malts. Think about some of my craft maltster buddies who are making just really interesting things that, that whether it's malted rye or, different grains. I'm a fan of sort of the hybrid where there's a bit of caramelization and a bit of high temperature work going on. So it's a fully malted, and you get into stuff like some of the flavors in like the old Special B,
Mm-hmm.
Got to use them with a super sparing hand. But I think the flavors that you get out of them are just amazing. That really just great kind of dried plum raisin kind of character. I think that really well-made Pilsen malt is, completely on the other end of the spectrum, but it's just fantastic.
If you had to recommend us buying a particular Pilsen malt, do you have a name drop or anything, or is that like taboo?
No, I don't think it's taboo. I mean, if I was playing with some stuff like true Czech pills, like I think Wireman's got a floor malted. I don't even know if it's available on the homebrew market. I would assume it is, but a floor malted Czech barley. That's some of those things are pretty nice. There's a couple companies over in Germany as well that getting into some of their very interesting malts there. Small producers. But yeah, I think
you can't even find over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you think about where that stuff is grown in Czech Republic and the growing conditions, and then that the way that they've made that malt. I mean, I got an entire book written on Pilsner malt, translated from the Czech, and I'll tell you, it's very interesting. What the way that developed, and like. And who the hell's translating a book on Pilsen malt to English? He's got more time on their hands than I do.
But I mean, if there is an entire book, to be written about it, I guess there's something to be said, about just how important that is to making those classic styles.
The book was originally written, I think it was a brewmaster at Pilsner or Keller, Budjovice, and the first book was on making Pilsner beer, but you're not going to make proper Pilsner beer without the malt. And the malting processes are so unique that I think turned around and wrote like, oh yeah, you need this too. This is how you get to it. So very cool, very cool and long, low moisture germinations, which drive a really different set of enzymatic activity and make for really different malt.
So speaking then of different malts, European versus like American, is there a really huge difference between like the European like crystal malts and like our American caramel malts, like crystal 60 and caramel 60 and.
Well, I think there's a little bit of to do with the barley variety that's there. More important, though, I think, is how those malts are made. So you think about malts that are made in a roasting drum. So you can make like a crystal or caramel in a roasting drum, and then they also make what they'll sometimes call this a floor crystal or caramel. And those are very different malts. And I vastly prefer a drum roasted. And they can get to higher temperatures, and you just coax some different flavors out. It gets more like a more glassy endosperm. Both of them are going to come out, same color, but the flavors that they carry with them are really different. I'll tell you, I just had a really super cool experience like a week ago, just over a week ago, which was Breeze Malt. It's based out of Chilton, Wisconsin, and there's an old malt house in Chilton built in 1901, and it was originally the Chilton Malting Company, and then Breeze took it over, many years ago, and that's where they made all their malt. And eventually, they've grown since then, and they've now since bought another malt house over in Manitowoc, which is like 40 minutes away, right on the it's where the ferry comes in, the Ludington Ferry comes in, the Badger. And it was owned by Anheuser-Busch at one point, and then they brought it back, and it's a really nice facility, and it's about 15 times the size of the one in Chilton. Chilton is super old and kind of not very automated, and they decided they're going to close that thing down, and so like a week ago they shut the kilns down for the final time. And when that happened, they had reached out to me. I've been talking. We're a big Breeze customer. I've been talking to them for a while about this because I'm a huge malt nerd and a huge history nerd. Mm-hmm. So I went over there as like their sole guest during COVID, and pushed the button that shut the thing down. And,
oh wow!
Dumped the final floor and made was there to do the color checks on the final drums of caramel coming out of there, and now it's closed. It was kind of poignant, bittersweet, super cool. Just great places. The guy was making caramel malt. He's been there for like 40 years, and he didn't have the preferred shift because he was the new guy. There was another guy shut down he and I both shut down one burner each, and He's been there for like 44 years.
Wow.
So, like real craftspeople steeped in history and very cool.
That is
Did,
pretty
did
awesome.
you get to bring home any of that malt?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm taking the last 4 drums of malt from there.
Yeah.
Is
I was
that
gonna say,
more of a
I-
special beer?
The color's a little low. Color's slightly low, but that's okay.
You gonna do a special beer with it?
Yeah, we'll do some fun stuff with it. Yeah, they had the floor malt that they were making. They called it Last Call. It's like came to about a 6 Lovabond SRM, and just got a great toasty flavor. It's like sort of moving its way towards like the intermediate step between a traditional English pale ale malt, brought up to a higher color with a more malty character, and then between that and like a Munich. It was
Nice.
totally.
Nice.
What would customers use to what would they make with that malt? Like just traditional English beers, or are we gonna make like a New England IPA out of it?
Smash it with juice.
Yeah, we saw the intricacy.
Yeah, I'm interested in pairing that malt up with something that's got a hop that's got a fairly high sort of floral essence to it. I think it just would come together very nicely there. Not so driven towards the the tropical
Yep.
mango, but just this expressive hop.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
So I know Bell's has you guys have started doing some farming, right? And growing your own barley and hops. I know the hops. I've walked through the hops yards, but I've heard the same with barley. Are you guys malting yourselves, or are you partnering with somebody to malt that for you?
Yeah, so we bought a barley farm, I don't know, a dozen plus years ago, up sort of Shepherd, Michigan. So, middle of, north of Lansing by about an hour. And we found that we were pretty not informed about that. And we had a really good growing partner up there. This guy, Mike Turnwald and his son. And they grew for us, and we grew many, many years up there, and we're making special malts and sending that barley over to Breeze to malt it. And I'll tell you that Michigan malt is interesting, but what do you do with it, and who's it important to?
Mm-hmm.
If you're selling beer in South Carolina, I don't, you're like, hey, this malt came from, like, what the hell do we care?
Right.
So that was in we used to make this pale ale, Midwest pale ale, and that was the malt in it. Christmas ale, and then something that we would make called the Homebrew Challenge worked.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that why it's been a little darker lately?
Yep.
Okay.
Changing, but that malt would change slightly year to year, anyways, just because growing conditions, malting,
Yeah.
whatever, making a run of it. You can't really dial anything in once.
The last couple of years too, the gravity was like way over like what was anticipated
creeping
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, that's cool.
It was
Yeah,
like
just
10,
an extra
1060 or
challenge.
something like 1062 this past year, or this past time they had it.
yeah, nothing last year, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Womp womp.
Actually, it's getting on time for nationals, and I had Brian over this weekend to try a bunch of old beer in my cellar to see if there was anything because I got one more entry I got to fill in, and we pulled out a Bell's beer from, I think it was 3 years ago. I did a raspberry for Bell's, and it still held up.
It's one of 3, right?
One of 3 out of 12. Yeah, I got a lot of beer to dump out when I get some time. But anyway,
Raspberry could work well because it's got a little bit of antioxidant in it.
I was surprised.
Uh,
Yeah, I was surprised at how well it hung out for being as old as it was. It lost a case in my cellar, and yeah, it was all right. Raspberry's all right. There's a lot of bad beer down there.
I don't know if I've ever had a bad beer from Jason.
I have.
Yeah,
I
about
had
9
mine
of
this
them.
weekend.
Yeah. So after Commonwealth, I know you did some time at Old Dominion as well, right? But then you got into more of the engineering side. It seems like. Is that something that you went to school for, or is it just something that kind of happened naturally through the transition or through your growth in the brewing industry?
Yeah, I mean, I was always very interested in brewery construction and the equipment in particular. And when I was at Dominion, we did a lot of growth, and I just ended up doing a lot of design work and got pretty self-educated on it. And I also spent a lot of time I'd gone to Siebel, and I would go back to Siebel, and I keep teaching at Siebel, and so when I started that company with this other guy, we're building equipment and building breweries, and it was really a wonderful experience. I traveled a lot and did a lot of really interesting projects. Everything from I built basically a $500,000 homebrew system for a very large malting concern because they were looking to make a computer driven pilot brewery, on down to when Yuengling, oldest brewery in the country, was building a new brewery, was involved in that design team. There was like sort of 4 disciplines, and I was one of them. So that was really another just great experience. And then like a ton of like micro brew pub, just really interesting different projects. Working at Yuengling was like just trying to synthesize in like to a space that like. If I walked out of the office I was working out of and walked down the stairs, those beer caves were dug by hand in 1830s.
Wow.
And they felt like it at times.
We just talk about
way in the back where everything's been closed down for a while. You're like, yeah,
sure.
A lot of water leaking out of these walls.
We talk about running into the guy that's been at the malt house for 40 years. I mean, Yuengling's been around for 200 plus years. There had to have been a lot of history and a lot of old timers there.
Oh yeah, a lot of fathers and sons working together.
Generational, yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
I hear they're coming to Michigan soon. I think this summer. I think we're supposed to start getting some Yuengling.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
There was a very suggestive tweet or comment reply I said I saw the other day that said capital MAY -BY or BE, like maybe they're coming. So yeah, who knows?
Nice.
Yeah, I've only had a couple of their beers. It's cool, the history and the recipes that they're using. It's neat. So so then from there you go into what was next? You started teaching.
Well, I taught I started teaching pretty early on, and would always do that in addition to whatever brewing job I was doing. So, take a couple days and go teach this subject or that subject. I mean, I taught at Siebel for like 20 something years, maybe 25 years. I don't know overall.
What kind of things did you teach?
Everything, beer, keg filling and keg dispense, mashing, loudering, filtration and chill stabilization. Something we do not do at Bell's. So it's like, why am I teaching this? Oh, it's all beer science, which is effing awesome. So I would do that. I would do that in addition to what I was doing. But I built breweries and was on the road pretty heavy with the consulting side for 5-7 years, something like that, and then came to Bell's to build the brewery and ended up just staying.
Was that the Comstock facility or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Here's an interesting little factoid. So built we did all the drawings for it, and then you put it out to bid to like a general contractor. We want to build this building, like, send in your bids. And so those plans get published on a day. And the day that is on all those plans, the day that it published was September 11, 2001.
Oh, man.
So you look at all the plans, the original plans for that, and you're like, oh yeah, that day. Kind of busy day.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy. It's interesting or unique that you have that kind of memorialized like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was living in DC at the time, and our house was not far from the Pentagon. Actually, the babysitter had taken my daughter to go to the Pentagon City Mall, which was on the other side of the Pentagon. So she was like she drove from our house, like in the loop just around the outside of the Pentagon, and then went to the mall. And then planes hit, all phones go off. It's like, where's our daughter? Well,
Right.
the last we knew, she was heading for the Pentagon. And the next day, September 12th, was the day that the big moving truck was going to come to our house near the Pentagon, and instead we had a tank at the end of our street.
Oh,
There was no big moving truck coming.
No.
no, I guess not.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's
It
crazy.
just so happens to be his birthday too.
That it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Your birthday?
Yes, it is September
I
11th.
did not know that. Okay.
Mhm.
See, I'm a good friend sometimes.
I was gonna say you were up fishing with me last year during my birthday.
Apparently
I drank a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I drank a lot. For some reason, I thought it was the 9th. And I'm sitting here going back, yeah, we were fishing. I drank a lot that weekend. Whatever.
That's what we
Okay.
do.
We drink to forget and to remember sometimes. But wow. So we've walked through. I think all of us have walked through the brewery up there. It's beautiful. I mean, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
had or played a part in the design of that, I mean, it's just really, really cool. Do you guys have any new construction or expansion going on out there?
Yeah. We're getting ready to build a new canning hall because cans have just gone ape shit since COVID, and we knew that we were going to need it in a couple of years. It's like we got to move that up. So we're in sort of we're past 90% design documents on that. Getting real close. Pretty awesome.
Nice.
So that's getting pretty good. And then a bunch of other projects as well. Things like spent yeast tank and CO2 tanks, and more fermenters. Like I got a dozen 800-barrel fermenters that are coming in a couple months.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Are those? How big are the ones? We've seen the ones that you guys do two-hearted in. How big are those?
Two-hearted goes through 400-barrel tanks, and then we've also got some existing 800-barrel tanks that are like sticking through the roof. Like you drive up and you see the tanks. Those are 800. So we'll finish out that block. The roof is like between 30 and 36 inches deep of concrete, heavily reinforced concrete, and the holes are already in there. We just got to peel back some covers we have, and they'll drop in.
Right on.
That's good. At least there was some forethought there. Jeez.
Yeah.
How do you
I
cut?
kind of want to
36
see those
inches of
being
concrete?
installed. That would be a sight.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's like a couple of big cranes, and that thing, like they get that thing up there super fast. I mean, you're like, holy cow, they're moving, and they just
Is
drop
the thing like swing in. They do it real slow. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Well, the tank kind of comes. The tank kind of comes in on its side like this. So they put like one crane here and one crane here, and then this one goes up and this one goes down, and then you've got the tank just hanging like that. They go over and they drop it in the hole.
Sure.
Guys who are doing the crane work are like, it's within a half an inch. That's good. Tank weighs how much?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're huge.
So when we did our walkthrough, go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I was
Who's
going to
gonna
go
do
to
it?
John's question. I was just going to say, when we walked through, we got to see the Stros tanks, and John Sutton, or the fermenters, asked if there was anything, if anything was going on there. I think when we were there, they were filled with water.
Yeah, we've been trying to, like those tanks are super cool, historic, and trying to make the right amount of a significant beer is something we've struggled with, and it's as much from like the how are we going to position it? What if it blows up? Because we only got this many tanks, and so I don't have anything going on with them right now. We've got I've got some longer range plans I want to do with them, but not prepared to discuss that yet.
Okay.
Good deal.
All right.
When you are ready, you know where to find us.
Yeah.
So yeah, save it for another show.
Our marketing team does a really good job, I think, of communicating. So it's not like it's going to be,
Big surprise. Yeah.
No, it's cool.
Your
I mean, there's a
walk-in
lot of
cooler?
Michigan history there. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
The Stros. Yeah. No, fine. I'm just reminiscing about my one tour of the brewery that I did. Was the walk-in cooler for your hops down there still called like a Christopher Walken?
Yeah, got a picture of Mr. Walken on the cooler.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, Brian.
I know, that was like my
way to
favorite.
bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's space. It's great. The aroma in that room is just
Yeah, it
it's
was awesome.
outstanding. If you can stand in there for more than a couple minutes,
Yep.
it's cold. Oh, that's cool. Somebody asked, going back to like malts and stuff like that earlier too. And it was kind of like, are Carafoam and Carapils different malts? Like, is there anything different between those two?
Well, I'll tell you. I can tell you the secret of Carapils, but I'll have to kill you. No. No, Breeze, holds that process very close to the vest. They do not talk about what, how Carapils is made or where the magic comes in there. So that's a secret, I guess.
Okay. Not even you have access to it?
Correct. Although,
okay. Yeah.
Although
I kid with them a lot when I see them about it.
So mostly it's probably the same. Carafoam, Carapils. I think Carafoam is what? Who makes that? Weirman?
Yeah. Drop it, Brian. He's not talking.
It was a question that came in earlier, so I just wanted to make sure I got that out there.
You got your job done. I got my job done.
Somebody else asked if you're okay with me just shooting off a couple questions.
Yeah,
Somebody asked with somebody in a position like you who has all this malt knowledge. The question was whether craft maltsters are able to make malt with the same consistency and brew house performance as the best industrial maltsters, raw or breeze. To his knowledge, it wasn't too long ago that some maltsters outside the U.S. were having trouble with consistency and brew house performance and stuff. So, how are craft maltsters doing with that right now?
So my old man once told me that there are two kinds of people in the world. Assholes who make sweeping generalization, and they didn't finish it for me, so I didn't quite understand it. No, so in terms of like when you say craft maltsters, I think that's lumping everybody into a pretty big bucket, and there's an incredible range of technique, ability, knowledge, like all of this stuff. So, to ask, as a broad class, I don't think I could answer it that way. Now, I will say, with some craft maltsters, there is a higher degree of variability. There's also a high degree of experimentation with, what's coming out, and those are, could be linked, right? So those very large maltsters have to have excellent process control. And when you're making, multiple rail cars worth of malt at a shot and have done that for generations, they're going to get some pretty good tools. The other thing with a very large maltster is that their primary customer might be a very large brewer or brewers who place an outsized emphasis on efficiency and consistency. Does not mean experimentation, does not mean flavor. It might be like Here's what we need. So, because they're being graded on that rubric much more than they generally have pretty tight specs. Now, have I had, some variation in large maltsters? Absolutely. But, by and large, they're usually fairly tight. The place that you run into with large maltsters, if you want to push them to try and make a new malt, like, let's try this. They don't always do, that can be a bit of a stretch for some. Just like trying to be super consistent could be a stretch for some very small maltsters.
Well, I was going to say, I asked, or that's what I would ask there is, I mean, the amount of Two Hearted that you guys brew, do you guys have do you have challenges there around the consistency of delivering? I mean, you brew hundreds and hundreds of barrels or thousands of barrels a year, and every time I've tried it, it's the same. So there's got to be a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a couple of really. There's a couple of folks who work in the role of technical brewer, and big part of what that group is doing is looking at the analytical data that we've got coming off, both internally generated from beers we're making, but also externally generated from like the malt that's coming in. So as we're getting malt reports, like certificates of analysis coming in, if we see the extract values going up or down, we will adjust the amount of malt to meet to get the end result. So our beers are specification driven, not just like recipe driven of like raw inputs. So it's not like put 100 pounds of this in. It's like get the outcome that has 90 pounds of extract. And if that takes more or less malt to get that extract, then that's absolutely what we're doing. So, and you look at there's across a number of different factors there. So, those malt bills are not just like one malt. We've got a couple of different levers we can pull, and everything in terms of like color and flavor, as well as just extract. Large brewers are just pretty much concerned about extract. How much sugar that I can get into the beer that can be fermented.
So with that work going into Two Hearted and the consistency that I've seen there, and I'm really not trying to be a dick, but it seems to be every year Oberon comes out and everybody's like, oh, this year's different. That year's, do you do the same, process for Oberon? Like, is Oberon really the same every year?
Well, let me tell you, this year's batch is going to be awesome because I'm often told this batch of Oberon, which would be a F-ton of a batch. So yeah, absolutely, we're doing the same thing, and I think Oberon's really interesting because people who are drinking Oberon, I think beer is as much about the time and place and company that you drink it. Like these are all sensory inputs that are influencing beyond what's just in the glass. I wish we could blank out our surroundings and focus on what's happening, but if it's like spitting sleet like it is tonight, that's going to affect you differently than like, there I was, it was May, I looked into her eyes, the whatever, as opposed to like looking for the damn cat outside, the cat's going to freeze, so, and then on top of that, beer as it ages changes. So maybe somebody's like, yeah, I'm a huge Oberon fan and I bought up a stock, and the stuff I drank in December or February is different than the stuff that's coming out at the end of March. Well, yeah, because the first stuff might be moving towards a later stage in its life cycle, and the idea that you somehow have this beer that is static, that's frozen in time, it's simply not the case. I mean, it's dynamic, it's moving, it's and all this. So I do think that it's there now. Analytically, the beers are the same. That's what we're looking for. We're buying hops in the same way that we buy hops for Two Hearted, for the same aim of, quality and consistency. There is a little bit of variation in raw material from year to year, but it's not that great.
No, but I think what you said speaks a lot to it. I mean, year from year, the experiences that we're having, the different, the different summer, being that we only get it here during the summer months. your attitude's going to change, your place in the world's going to change, your mentality is going to change, and it's going to color what you're tasting and the memories that it's leaving. So I totally get it. We're not Arizona or Florida, right, where you distribute year round, so we don't get we don't get to taste it every day like we do with a Two Hearted or one of the other ones. So thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still wish you would brew Smitten all the time, but I know I can't buy enough to make it viable for you, so I get it.
You
Nice.
could. You might have to move at your house.
Really, really beautiful. The Cascades just really came out nicely in that beer.
Actually, one of my few like Bell's souvenirs, I had a friend of mine that used to distribute your beer, old timer, and he had a bunch of Bell's paraphernalia, and I have some Smitten tap handles and stuff, so I get to look at it and remember fondly. You think it'll ever come back, John?
We didn't burn the recipe card. Let's just put it
that way. When I asked that last question, I got like 3 private messages and 2 texts like saying I was quiet. Is my mic okay now?
Your mic is
back.
Yeah. You sound good now.
All right.
Yeah, you faded out, and I think that made you sound like a total douchebag. That's all.
Just that. Just the mic.
Just the mic.
Kind of speaking of Oberon a little bit, this is one that I had written down to ask, but somebody did mention it earlier. And again, it might be back to one of those like Carapils questions, but before you guys started working with Imperial, Bell's yeast was sort of a closely held secret. You guys had instructions on how to propagate it from like Oberon bottles and stuff like that, but do you know what the origins of that yeast are at all? Or is that like, is that something you can talk about?
It's a yeast that Larry got.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, good fermenter. Yeah, I mean, I think it also has, in the brewery environment, in the brewery environment over time, that yeast may have modified somewhat as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had it banked, by the time I got to Bell's, it had already been banked and propagated off of that. I mean, it's just a solid yeast. I love the character that it throws. And it's not it's a closely guarded secret. We send out pitchable quantities in every bottle we make.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say we were at either an AHA meetup or maybe it was just your homebrew com, and like Dave was giving out, if you brought a jar, you could just get a slug of house yeast off of the out of the brewery. Like they were giving it out.
Yep.
And then did you guys work with somebody? I thought you guys were working with somebody to actually distribute it as a homebrew package. Am I totally wrong?
It's available from Imperial. It's in their homebrew shop.
Yeah. It is, yeah, Imperial. Okay.
The thing attenuates like nobody's business. I get like 82 to 85 on it like regularly. Like it's
good harvest too. It harvests nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. What do you got going on right now? I guess Bell's always innovating, and actually that was stupid. That's in your tagline, isn't it? Right. Is there anything that you're really excited about doing, or anything that you think is fun that's coming out this year?
Yeah, I mean, we're playing with one of the things that we've got going on this year that we finally came to fruition is some of our employee spotlight stuff. So we've got now a better process for collecting brewing ideas from staff, and then running out small quantities of it. It goes through the pub, and something like I was down within the last week, was down at the pub and was drinking a really nice beer that one of our employees, Joey Veeder, had the idea for. So it's got lavender, a little sour. I mean, just like
it's the blackcurrant lavender one, right? I think,
yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
That sounds
Did you
wonderful.
have it, Brian? Did you have
What's
some?
that? No.
Yeah.
I haven't had it yet. I just saw it.
I would recommend going down. I mean, it was pretty.
Okay.
It's really nicely constructed. So being able to do this in a more codified way, because I mean, there's all kinds of ideas that get thrown out, and how do you pick them? And we're going through this process where we're actually blinding the contributor, so we don't know who's contributing the idea, and that's important, I think, because you want to do that independent of your, whatever conceptions you may have of that person, and it's not like we walk around like, that person's a total jerk. But just having that really like super blank slate to be able to really to look at this stuff.
Sure.
Is fantastic. So I think that's something that I'm very excited about. One of the other things that I think is interesting that's happening is that, down at the pub, we call that B1, Brewery 1. And the person who's run B1 for quite a long time is this guy by the name of Zeke Bogan. Well, Zeke has family in LA and decided, I want to move to be with my family. So he left there, and we just hired for his replacement. And so we've had a brewer at who's, she's been at Bell's for a while, and she's been in the brew house. She did a stint in innovation, and she just got that job. So her name's Dawn, and she's really, so I'm interested to see kind of what's coming through that program soon. The other thing that we've got that's going on right now is we built our innovation brewery out at Comstock. It's beautiful, computer controlled, emulates all of our big systems, and brews 12 barrels of beer at a whack. And so we're able to make like beers that scale very nicely to production through that system, and take multiple bites at the apple. And if stuff is not right, then it hits the drain, no problem. But one of the things we bought was what we call the 4-pack. So it's 4 fermenters that are each 3 barrels. And so we take that 12-barrel batch, we split it into four streams, and then we're doing stuff like we do a fair amount with the hop supply chain, like the public and private breeders, and pulling in some of these things. So like earlier today, I went down and, we had this triangle test of like, taste these 3 samples of beer, 2 of them the same, one's different. Can you pick it out? And this was all going to, national hop research. So getting in these hops that are dried under different conditions, pushing them through this process to see what the flavors are coming out of it, all, like rigorous scientific method for sensory examination. Is there a difference? Which is preferred? This kind of stuff. And so to be able to bring this weight of research into the breeding programs is fantastic. And we're doing this also with like new varieties of barley, and really trying to act, we act as a brewery that is probably much larger than we are. At one time that research was really funded and stood up by the very large brewers, and now not so much. And so we're doing that, and we're totally open about what we're doing, and here's the data, and it goes back to the groups that we're involved with. So Hop Research Council, Hop Quality Group, American Malting Barley Association, any of these groups.
Is that something like you guys are paid to like help with, or is it just like for the greater good of beer, and for your own innovations and stuff like that? Cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I think about like the Hop Quality Group, which is a group that, Bell's was instrumental in the founding of, and, has remained very active with the whole time. I actually just stepped down as like the president after 10 years, doing that for the 10 years that it's been around. But, like other breweries are involved as well. I mean, Sierra, Russian River, Founders, New Glarus, New Bell, these are all breweries that are doing this. And together we can pick up some pretty heavy weight and drive that stuff forward. And I'm interested in what are those new flavors and hops. Yeah. And oh, by the way, we're in on the ground floor. Yeah. So like see this and we're like, we like that. Can we sponsor a private couple acres? They're like, sure.
Nice.
So like before the thing ever gets a name, it's still this numbered variety. We're making beer with it. I mean, that was the case with Mosaic before Mosaic ever hit. It was, numbered variety, and we were getting mini bales of it to make interesting beers.
Do we find those in like Larry's latest IPA sometimes, or okay?
Well, funny you ask. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely where we're putting some of those through are different techniques for IPAs, but some of them are hops that we've never tried before. I think an interesting thing with hops right now is like, especially new American hops, they're really driving for flavor. And some of those flavors are such that they make really good, orchestra players, not great soloists. So you need to figure out who they're playing with. They don't want to, you don't want to do just the drum solo. You want the rest of the jazz.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome. That's actually a great way to put it, because there's so many of these. There's a lot of hops out right now. I think that I've tasted people trying to do smashes with, and it's like, no, this thing.
Yeah.
This thing does not stand on its own.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a firecracker in your mouth or something. You're like, if you can kind of pull it together with maybe a little more fruit,
Right. I don't know how many people have tried to brew sriracha to try to get the pickle out of it. Like, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dill in that thing. It's like dill, tobacco, green pepper. Like,
right. It's good as an accent. It's a backup. That's awesome. So you mentioned Sean. What was that again? She's your innovation brewer?
Well, she's in the innovation. So the innovation. So we have like a whole innovation group. So that's headed up by Andy Farrell, longtime Bell's employee, super smart, very technically focused. And then he's got control of the B1 stuff. So Sean's going to be done at B1 out at Comstock, the main brewery, the 12-barrel system there. Lawrence Wildschut is kind of heads that up, and he's got a couple of, again, very experienced, really smart brewers out there. And then Pat Kaz, Kevin Stuchel, like the longest serving sort of like day-to-day brewer. Rick Dillinger's been there for quite a long time, and Kevin's second only to him. So those, Kevin, Pat, Lou, Mike Alsop, Chris, are all in that innovation program.
I was talking with Sean's boyfriend actually, and
were you in the liquor store?
I was in a liquor store. I was talking to Levi, and I meant to reach out to Levi before I emailed you. I was trying to reach out. It was on my list to try to reach back out to Levi to get a connection with Sean to see if she'd be down to coming out and talk with us. So I'm going to follow up with Levi now, see if I can connect with her. I know we really missed out, so like this week was what was it, like National Women in Brewing Day or something? We should have, not that I regret hanging out with you, John, but we should have probably jumped on that bandwagon. But no, that's cool. I didn't know that when I was talking to Levi a while ago, I think that was before she took over that. So that's neat.
Yeah, I mean that news just broke in the last week.
Awesome. No, now I have to go back to a liquor store and.
Shucks.
Right on. So do you guys? So you did. Do you have any new like creative series is coming out? Like I know we had Planets, and then we had the Whitman series. Do you have anything else in plan, or anything you're thinking about doing?
Well, if we did, I would let the marketing department choose the timeline.
Good point. I still got a 6-pack of the Planets, and I'll tell you, back in the day when I did those, some friends of mine got together and we poured them together, and we thought that and we called it the solar system, and we thought that the sum of all of them is a great beer.
Oh, really? You did a party bowl?
Yeah, we filmed it too. I actually have the film somewhere. Us pouring all 6 of them together and then splitting up and drinking it. It was good. It's fun.
Oh,
But I still have for some reason, again, I have a black hole basement or cellar, and I was going through that and realized I had set aside a 6-pack of the Planets. For some unknown reason, I still have it. So now I don't think I'll ever open them. Just let them sit.
Some will sit better than others.
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't want to open any of them now.
Yeah, I'm going to say Mercury, maybe not so great. Mars, might be falling apart a little. Neptune, not bad.
Not bad.
I
Yeah.
can't
The
remember
one-
what any of those were. I remember
my
I know
favorite-
Mars, obviously, but
My favorite was Uranus, the black IPA. Go figure. I thought it was the greatest. I thought. Although I really like Black Hearted now too.
I liked Black
not
Hearted when I played
Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of the Planet series.
No, just black IPAs from Bell's. Right on.
Drew asked earlier in chat too. I don't want to miss it before like other comments come in, but this is curious about some of the resurrected barley strains coming out, like MSU's Spartan barley, pre-prohibition malt. So, yeah, any thoughts or knowledge or anything or experimentation that you have to do with that?
Yeah, I think about like so Spartan, that has been held in the Aberdeen Germplasm Bank for quite a while. That's out in Idaho, and that's where they hold onto these barley varieties. They regrow them every so often, and then bank them again. And you can send away as a U.S. citizen, you can send away to get like a very small sample of these various barleys. I got Spartan back like a long time ago. When we first got the farm, I was like, oh, we should totally grow some of these original Michigan strains. And we didn't do a very great job of growing them, number one, but also agronomically, they weren't great. And if you think about what is happening in barley selection, so for a long time, like farmer would go out in the field and they would harvest what there was and then throw some of it back in the field. And that is a mixed rate. It's like mixed. It's all these different barleys which are growing together. And barley self-pollinate. So like, Spartan barley will make more Spartan barley. Unlike apples, which, a Macintosh will not grow a Macintosh. So with this, I looked at these different barley varieties, and there are certain things called land races. So land races are a collection of barleys and they become locally adapted. And it's interesting because there's a genetic diversity in there, which makes it really, I think about like if you were in Sweden growing barley and like, there you are growing barley down by the coast, and then your cousin comes and grabs some barley and grows it up in the mountain or further north or whatever. Likely there is a genetic variation in there that favors some over others, but there's always this mix. So maybe the particularly cold tolerant ones are doing better up north, and the ones that can tolerate moisture better are doing going better down south. And so there's kind of a constant ebb and flow. And with the modern barley strain, they've got it down so that all of that barley is the same, pretty much genetically. So over time, they've bred for better agronomics. Barley wants to grow tall, and then when the wind comes, it knocks it over and causes the seeds to fall off. The farmer doesn't harvest very much, or it's particularly susceptible to one of the fungal diseases, or take your pick among things that can happen genetically. So that over time we've actually done better. So using these strains is pretty interesting because they do have different characteristics. You look at Maris Otter, which is, I'd like to say it's an old strain, but it was developed about the same time I was born. So it's not really an old strain, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah. So, but if you look at that barley variety, one of the reasons why you pay more for Maris Otter is the farmer gets about half off the field that they would with a modern variety.
Interesting.
Okay.
Something like Golden Promise like that too.
Golden Promise is almost as old. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And so there's good reason to pay more for these things. And I think they've got, the way that they act in the malt house and the way they act in the brew house afterwards is is different, and it's great. And I really like those varieties. But you know, there's a reason why you pay more. So that said, something like Spartan, I likened it to, you know, Michigan has developed a lot of things, and I don't want to, you know, like, I don't work for Ford, so I can steal their thunder. But look for in 2023, they're coming out with a brand new Model T, exactly the same as the old Model T, and it's going to be a huge seller because not at all, right?
Because
yeah, sure, yeah.
It doesn't have seatbelts,
Right.
crank it, doesn't have, you know, safety. So I look at Spartan in a similar way. It's interesting, but in the same way as a Model T is interesting.
You would think too that like maybe like I don't what's what am I looking for? The land basically would have changed since the times that these were harvested too and stuff, right? So if you were trying to grow them in the, you know, regionally same places, like maybe the dirt and pH and whatever else may not be exactly the same.
it's
as
going to be the
same
same
as
as
climate. There you go. How about Jesus? No, yeah.
it's just like Oberon being
Yeah.
different every year. Why can you?
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of age and old stuff, so some of us have acquired, thanks to Larry clearing out his cellar. We've got some 25, 6, 7-year-old Expedition Stout. And I would love to get together and do like you know, open it on air and drink it and taste it and talk about it. What do you think? What did it hold up? Have you tried any of it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, I think about, you know, beer ages and those flavor changes that occur in the beer can be positive or negative, and they can be positive and then negative. And if I think about where I want to see beer, you know, the big dark beers just age beautiful. Like I sometimes think you put them in the bottle and they're just like a little too sharp, aggressive, forward, maybe bitter, whatever else. And then as they age down, they become more complex, caramely, delicious. You age them way the hell out, and they'll start to, you know, go to soy sauce, you know, and so like kind of where in their lifespan that exists. You know, with most IPAs, you know, you're drinking them as fresh as you possibly can.
sure.
You know, some other beers, like I want to drink like Third Coast Old Ale or Expo after a few years in the bottle. I don't want it.
It's delicious.
I don't love it fresh as much as I love it with some age on it.
You know, I'm used to seeing those 5 to, you know, maybe even 10 years old. So, but I'm excited to try. And we've got another member at Keepers that has years. I think if we line up, we can get like 6 years.
Yeah.
That we were able to acquire. I think 90. What was Brian?
4,
90,
5, 6,
94. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to it. I've never, you know, tried something that old. I did go back and drink an 08 cherry.
Oh yeah.
And that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we were
Just a little
actually
bit like sherry flavors kind of, but like it didn't.
Yeah, the sherry flavor, the fruit was still there. It was an old cherry flavor, but in the best way possible. Like the cherry aged as well. And we even ate it with some chocolate and did a pairing. It was fantastic.
Fantastic pairing, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the cherry. You know, the cherry is really interesting because it's got pretty low pH. You know, it's little thick. That helps. Dark malts, ton of antioxidants. Cherry, the fruit, ton of antioxidants. So it's really set up. That beer is like set up to age well, and to get, again, you go from something that's fairly sharp and acidic to something that's just, I mean, wow. You know, in the way that great wine does that.
You mentioned fruit and antioxidants a lot. Like, is that, do you think, part of why, like something like like a wine ages so well, more so than like a beer might? Like I've never really considered that, and I don't know a whole lot about wine, but
yeah, there's tannins, polyphenols, which are present in hops and barley husk, in wine grapes, particularly in the skin, so like a red wine. And those tannins will bind up over time and change. And if you think about what tannins do is they complex with proteins. So if you're tanning leather, you're taking leather, which is mainly protein, the animal hide, which is mainly protein. You're putting it with this tannic acid, which is tannin, and that kind of like pulls that structure together tighter. The same thing is happening inside of your mouth. So if you take a particularly like young and aggressive red wine or tea, black tea, and you put it in your mouth, you get this sense of like my mouth is getting tighter. And
Sure.
it's like those proteins are being interlocked with the tannins and actually being pulled together. So, tight is a really good descriptor because that's kind of what's happening. You're like tanning the inside of your mouth. So those tannins over time in wines will start to precipitate out. Those tannins are maybe anthocyanins. They've got some color to them as well. So as a wine ages, it goes from that really vibrant, red down through, intermediary down to sort of like a brownish kind of color. And the more of them there are, like the better that wine's going to age. So if you think about like a really young Bordeaux as being like, kind of in your mouth, and then over time, you need that to be high for it to age a long time. If you had low levels of that, it wouldn't age well. So in the same way, those polyphenols are coming in from hops and from malt and from fruit. So yeah, those things are absolutely there. And unfortunately for winemakers, they get to play with like one ingredient. So like what do you like watercolor with black? Like great. With brewers, we've got this palette that we can bounce between in really interesting ways.
Cool.
Yeah.
If and sort of related to wine, I know you guys have occasionally put out things like mead and stuff like that. Do you have anything to do with like those brews or anything like that?
Yeah, those come through the program. We haven't pushed a lot of we haven't put a lot of effort into them. We've always got some cider on and some mead on downtown.
Yeah.
But, it's not like we're cranking through 22 new permutations of it over the course of a year. I'd love to do that, but there's like, how much bandwidth do you have, and do you want to do 82 things poorly or one thing really, really well? And that's absolutely our brewing focus.
Right on. Man, let's make sure we're not missing any questions. John Sutton asks if there's any other Michigan breweries or beers that you have mega respect for. Is there anything that's hot right now that you're impressed with out in the market in Michigan?
Well, let me tell you how much bar drinking I've been doing lately.
But that's the beauty of it, John. It's been forcing us to bring it all home, right? And try all this random shit.
Yeah, I feel like I've just been to ground for most of the last year. Not doing a ton. So, in terms of what's interesting and happening with other Michigan breweries, I can't wait to get back out there and see more of that.
I know. I want to do a road show myself, and I'm just getting sick of being pent up. COVID needs to be over with.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I really appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and I think this has been great and informative. And for the people, at least in the homebrew community here, it's always you and the guys at Bell's are always kind of like the rock stars in the industry. So to get to hang out with a local hero like you for an hour has been really great. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This has been great. I always love talking beer. So, and not living in my house much these days.
Yeah.
Although I am all COVID vaccinated up now, so that's pretty good.
Nice.
Congrats. Good.
Yeah.
Getting my first shot tomorrow. So, yeah. I normally work out of California, and I just crossed a year where I haven't been to the office for a year because of COVID. And so I can't wait. I'm getting shot up tomorrow and in April, and I'm booking a trip for May. So
There you go. Good.
That's great.
And
Right
for those
on.
watching live, John, it's not a virtual background. That is his actual cozy place.
Oh, yeah, we already went through that, and he made fun of us or me for asking. Yeah, are you warm and toasty?
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, those people have been probably watching as fire slowly die down.
Slowly
in the
die down. I
background.
have,
It's
Out right now is beautiful. I've been cooking inside of my wood stove occasionally.
oh,
That's
that
awesome.
sounds
Pizzas
wonderful.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah.
So
Have
like
you done any?
like that.
You got into the bread? Have you tried baking like
Ooh.
on top, like in a Dutch oven or anything? No.
No, I do a lot of pizza. I do like pizza every Sunday night. Just have done that for years. And I'll do that, maybe on the grill or whatever. But I haven't baked much in here. I mean, this thing gets effing hot. So like, I did some friends. A friend come over last week, and I did like lamb chops in there.
Ooh,
Wow. No, that
Dang.
sounds awesome.
yeah.
We did them for like an hour and a half at like 1:30, and then finished them in there. Like they just were delicious.
Mm.
That sounds awesome. Right on. Well, thank you again. We will get our next show posted here shortly. We're going to get into some meads. What else, Brian?
I know that we have another brewery lined up in April. Right?
Oh, yeah, we're going to get Five Shores on. So we've got
Five Shores.
Ellie.
Oh, yes.
Yep, we're going to talk to Five Shores Brewing from up north. Ellie's a graduate of the KVCC Western Brewing Program in Kalamazoo. John, I know I keep trying to exit the show, but have you done anything with that program, or have you been involved at all?
Yeah. I mean that program's super good. We do a thing with them where we have a 1 year paid internship
Right on.
selected from one of the students that go to there.
Oh,
Now this last year we did not do it well. COVID was raging, but
COVID.
we're bringing that back. Absolutely.
That's cool.
That's really sweet.
We've
so
been talking and would love to have probably somebody from the program and like a student from the program or something on. So
yeah, absolutely.
maybe we can get in touch with you and get like an email address or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be so fun. Yeah, very cool.
So yeah, we'll be back in April with Ellie. I can't remember her last name, from Five Shores Brewing, and then we've got a couple of the breweries I'm working on right now, and then Brian's got some topics, and we're going to bring back some homebrew clubs as we ramp up to our 1 year. So yeah, keep your eye out on the page, and we'll post some shit here in the near future.
Cool.
So,
John, thank you
right.
so much, man. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Thanks a lot.
man. I learned a
I
lot.
appreciate it. So here's the fun part. I'm going to play the outro, and they can still hear us. And we always talk through it.
That's right.
We used to try not to talk through this, and then
I know it's everybody like, oh, be
it just
quiet.
became our
But now
thing.
it's funny.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.